I'm out of breath. I'm not going to lie. Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday.
And happy Memorial Day.
Yeah, happy Memorial. Is that a weird way to start a broadcast, just to say I'm out of breath?
It is a little weird.
So, funny story, just really, really quickly. 30 seconds into that video, it's only like a minute long. Did you guys like that, by the way? Love to hear in the chat if you did. That was Product Launch Formula Live with Jeff Walker. And I got to give...
just last week. That's hard to believe, like just a week ago.
It was. And I got to give a shout out to Christian Eli, who knocked out that edit. He took a ton of video over the course of 4 days. And a couple days ago, he was like, hey, look at what I put together. I'm like, wow, that's really good.
Yeah, it's a little virtual event inspiration, right? It's like, this is what's possible with a virtual live event. That was all shots from a virtual live event, which is what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah.
But I do want to take a second just to give a shout out to all of our American heroes. You know, Memorial Day weekend is where we celebrate time and money freedom. I think of that all the time because as entrepreneurs, that's what we're all about, is time and money freedom. And that wouldn't be possible without all the amazing people. And, you know, for those of you who are international, bear with us, but for all of our heroes who fought wars in order to protect and preserve the American way. I think of my dad. I think of him as my second dad, Jerry Cruz, who is an American soldier. He fought in Vietnam, flew Hueys, and is an amazing, amazing human. And I think of celebrating him today and all the people that made us sitting here right now possible, made all this time and money freedom possible, made all this opportunity possible. In addition to beer and barbecue, that's what all.
In addition to beer and barbecue.
So yeah, let's talk about how, you know, live events are the path to time and money freedom, or at least one great path to time and money freedom. They're one of the ultimate ways to position yourself, get credibility, not just as an expert, but as the authority, get in front of your audiences for impact. And certainly they're one of the best ways to have what we consider a profit-driven payday, or a purpose-driven payday, which is essentially having your purpose or your impact front and center. And then of course, having income, having a payday. And when you marry those two together through the power of a live event, we think it's the ultimate positioning and profit making and purpose driving tool. So we're going to talk about that today.
We are, but before
it feels like in the last 60 days it was to be totally compromised, like events were going away, but it's not true.
It does actually. Well, first off, I was going to say, just reiterate what you said. I'm Canadian. For those of you that don't know,
I recruited him.
She did. I followed a girl to the United States. But you know, one of the things I love about your dad, honestly, is whenever he introduces himself, it's like Jerry Cruz, American soldier. I'm like, and you know, that's how he introduces himself.
Literally.
It's
and that's
a
how
part
he thinks
of who
himself.
he is.
It is in his DNA. He is the ultimate American soldier.
Yeah.
He's an amazing human.
Yeah, exactly. Leslie Thomas Flowers. I flew troops into and out of Vietnam in the 60s as a stewardess. Thank you for your service. Yeah, 100%. Really, really good times. Really, they're really great people to chat with. Some of the best stories that I've heard. You know, oftentimes. Listen, war is not a pretty thing, I would assume. I'm too much of a...
You're lucky to not have to know.
Yeah, exactly. But some great stories always come out of that. And stories of great friendship, stories of, you know, great resiliency.
Yeah, it's amazing to see Jerry get together with some of his buddies from Vietnam and hear them talk and share stories and have a wall full of medals in his house. He doesn't even talk about that really. It's just, you know, I think that's just what you did and how you served. And we're going to talk about service today. It's important. It's a big part of what you're doing too. Like whatever your tribe is and your niche is in your own way, you're fighting a war for them, right? And in COVID especially, it kind of does feel like we're fighting a war right now against an unseen enemy, like something that we can't see, we don't fully understand, we don't know where it's going to attack next. We're not sure how long it's going to be here. It's been a total invasion that blindsided not just Americans, but the whole globe. Mm-hmm. I feel like every single day changes. All the rules keep changing. And I think the hardest thing is usually, you know, if you think of the World War I, World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam War, even 9/11, even the 2008 recession. If you think of any of these major events that we as Americans have had, it's always been like a band together, kind of like, let's get out there, we're going to do this together kind of thing. And so the stay-at-home mentality of alone together is super hard for us because it goes against everything that we as humans kind of believe in, which is, you know, connection and community and being together and fighting it together. So it's so hard to think of fighting it. The best way to fight it is alone. A little worried about this weekend. You know, I think for all of us in event world, you know, we have a lot of clients with fall events that are debating whether in-person fall events are going to actualize or not. And, I was just saying to a client yesterday who has an event in December, I'm like, this sadly Memorial Day weekend is a little bit like a petri dish. For the first time, you're seeing people really kind of get out there. They've been pent up for a couple months. They're dying to get out there. We live on the water, and it was amazing today. The water in front of our house has been busier than we've seen it in 2 months. There are paddle boarders and canoes and boats and jet skis and, people out there just living it up. And it's a weekend to kind of let your guard down. And of course, we won't know for sure for 2 or 3 weeks, but by the end of June, you'll know whether we're past the flattening of the curve and it really worked, or whether we're going to have a resurgence, which really leads into what we're talking about today. For sure. 2 months ago, if you had told us.
Actually, before we do this, I know oftentimes when we start this particular webinar, which we've done a couple times, and happy to be with you guys on a Saturday morning live.
Thank you for joining us live on a Saturday on a holiday weekend.
100%. It is beautiful day outside today, Renee. I agree 100%. So I just want to have a little bit permission. Please put it in the chat. Do you guys mind if we tell you a quick story before we dive straight into content? We've got some great.
That's smart.
Yeah, we've got some great content ready for you this morning. We're going to be talking about the 3 things that have made live events, virtual events outperform live events. One of them is people's show up strategies, and we have 4 keys to getting people to show up at about 4 times the rate that people are showing up to webinars or typical virtual events. So that's what we have in store for you. But if you don't mind, and I'm going to wait to start the story until you guys say, yes, it's okay, give me a story. But we are going to just tell you a quick one. All right. Thank you. Melissa, love you, says, tell us a story. Tell it. Beth says she'd like the content. It's Saturday, but Beth, you're being outvoted. So we are going to get to content, but here's...
And by the way, we have some deep content, so stick with us. How about this? We'll compromise. Blue will promise to tell a short story.
Yes.
I'll keep it short, and then we're going to dive straight into content. Have pens and pads ready, because we are going to be diving into case studies of virtual events and how they're working, the 3 things you have to do in order to make them work, and the 4 things you have to do to get them to stick with you. So we're going to dive into all that today. It's going to be about 90 minutes.
About 90 minutes, yeah. We're going to be here till about 1:30 Eastern time. We've got about 15 minutes at the end.
Just jot your questions down or put them in the chat. We're going to be taking those.
We're keeping an eye on them and so on and so forth.
All right, so it's go time. Short story.
Short story. Here's the deal. 60 days ago, Barry and I run Sage Event Management, which is an event production firm. We've been around for about 16 years. We've done hundreds of live events and generated over $450 million for our clients. We are a live event business at our core. And when we talk about live events, we're talking about live events for speakers, authors, entrepreneurs, trainers, coaches, consultants, people who typically teach a thing, right? People like Jeff Walker, people like Dean Graziosi, Stu McLaren, Fabienne Fredrickson, Lisa Sasevich, you keep looking over my head. Mary Morrissey, lots of folks that you probably know, and these are the people that we continue to work with today, and have worked with for a good long time. And 60 days ago, had you asked us, hey, quick question for you. Do you think that you could generate the type of results that you do from a live event virtually? I think we probably would have laughed at you and said, no, what, are you crazy? I probably would have sworn as I was saying it. Yeah. But, I think the term is necessity is the mother of invention. So March 13th, Barry and I had just gotten back from Puerto Rico. We flew to Puerto Rico for 2 days.
And bear with us, Jennifer, Deb, a couple of you. I see you saying content. Please pay attention. Some of this does tie directly into what we're going to talk about.
It absolutely does.
Blue's going to keep it short, but what we're talking about is the massive pivot and how quickly it happened and what it means to you if you're in the event space, whether it's going to be your next big event or your first event, why this pivot happened, how quickly it moved, and why it matters to you.
How it applies to you, exactly. Yeah. So, as an event company, we were down in Puerto Rico to meet with Stu McLaren, who, if you don't know Tribe, awesome program on memberships. But we were there, we were talking about Sage and messaging and a launch that we had planned for the summer, which was to teach people how to run their own profitable live events.
In person.
And we come back on March 11th or so, we go to our next live event, which was in Miami, and it turns out that would be the last live event that we will have done for the foreseeable future.
Possibly in 2020. Like, I don't think we know. It's weird to think that we got on that plane to Puerto Rico to see Stu and Farouk and have some strategy time.
Yeah. So we go through the Atlanta airport, and it's full, right? Our plane is full. It's pretty much normal. And March 13th happens.
And we're also looking at each other like this
isn't a thing.
The airport's full, the parking lot's full, the restaurants are full, the plane is full. COVID is scary, but it's not really going to be devastating. It's just a little scary right now. We've had our hand sanitizer, we're being careful, but it seemed like all was well.
So we get to Miami, and March 13th happens, and that's the date that Trump declared a national emergency. And pretty much everything changed at that point. Monday we get back on a plane to go home after our event in Miami, and we get to the Atlanta airport because we go through Atlanta for everything because we live in Myrtle Beach. So there's no direct flights to Myrtle Beach from anywhere except Atlanta and Charlotte, but I don't want to fly American. Anyway, so the Atlanta airport is like a scene from The Walking Dead, just minus the zombies, right? It is a wasteland. There is nobody there.
Yeah, and it's literally in the span of 4 days. Full parking lot, full airport, full restaurants, full flight. 4 days later, empty airport.
And then from there, what winds up happening, literally, in the next 5 days, every single event that we had between the Monday and the or basically from that date through September 1st, every single event
and for
canceled.
Sage, just to give you an idea, we do about 30 in-person events a year for some of the names that Blue mentioned earlier. So some big names in our space. And, literally 8 events canceled, 8 events postponed, 22 events renegotiated. And then kind of, the follow-up story to that is some of the events that we pushed to the fall and renegotiated are now being postponed, canceled, moved, and renegotiated. So for those of you in event space, you probably can relate to this. It has been a crazy 60 days.
So at that point, Barry and I look at each other and we have a decision to make because we have a small team. We're not a big company, but we have 12 full-time employees. And we can do what every other live event business, audiovisual business, hotel, or some like tourism or travel related business is doing, which is essentially shut their doors, lay off their team, furlough their team, or honestly go out of business. And we looked at each other and said, listen, at some point this may change. That was one of our options. At some point this may change. And it is going to change. When live events come back, our team isn't just going to stay unemployed for an extended period of time. I think that the smart thing for our business, the best thing for our team, because we value our team, they're a skilled team, and truthfully, the best thing for us is to try and figure this out, to do a pivot. So we went to our first client and said, hey, we've got this crazy idea. How about we try taking your live event, which had just been canceled in Indianapolis, and go virtual? And
it's a big experiment.
It was.
In the first week of April.
Yeah.
And so literally that was a 2-week pivot. If you do the math, we were on a plane to Puerto Rico, flew to Miami, flew home from Miami. All of that fell apart in 1 week. Fast forward 2 weeks later, we've canceled 8 events, moved 8 events, renegotiated 22 events, and we put on our first virtual event that had been in person and is now pivoted to virtual.
So with that, I think, we had great success, and I'll tell you a little bit about that later. Then we had our next couple of events, and more people started coming to us and seeing that, live events are, in fact, not dead, right? And that's the cool thing. But the reality is they just look a little different, right? They're virtual in nature. And, at the end of this, this is the hook to stay with us all the way through. There's one thing that most people are getting wrong when it comes to their virtual events, and we're going to share exactly that with you at the end of this.
And it's big names, everything from the NFL draft to big event hosts to event hosts you may have never heard of. A lot of them getting this exact same thing wrong. So who is this for? Like, if they're out there and listening right now.
Yeah, if you're listening to this right now, if you're watching this, well, which you are, and thank you for being with us. This is really for, much like our clients, people who are speakers, authors, entrepreneurs, small business owners looking to grow their business through the power of a live event and a high ticket offer, coaches, consultants,
influencers, knowledge brokers, like people who live, love, and leverage live events. And I know for some of you, you're in the trade association space. We've had a lot of that. Some of you are in theater or music, that kind of thing. We've seen a lot of that. And certainly there are some takeaways here, but our primary focus is folks who are in the space Blue just mentioned, and just demonstrating for you how easy it can be for you to make that same pivot that we made from in-person to virtual, whether it's going to be your next event or your first event. We kind of think of them all as live events, right? They're both live events. It's just the vehicle, right? One is in person and one is virtual. One is offline, one is online, but they're both live events. And it's really working virtually. Let's give some examples right away so people can see what people are doing.
Yeah, so the good news is this does work virtually. And in fact, I was browsing the internet a couple days ago, and I came across 2 posts, people who had commented on on some of our posts. One was Lori Brown, the other was Jennifer Deep Stratton. Lori has actually taken some of the ideas that we're going to be sharing with you today and already hosted her next or her first
basically
virtual
heard a
live
free
event.
training that we did and took those ideas and immediately implemented them. Yeah.
And then Jennifer has had previous events in the past, has had live events in the past, decided to take her event virtual and created just as much revenue going virtual as she had live. So that's the cool thing. And when it comes down to it, we think that the difference between live events and virtual events, or live in person and live online, is they're really very, very similar. They're about 80% the same. And it comes down to, number one, what's different, that balance 20 comes down to tech, and it comes down to touch.
Which is great news for you. Like, again, if you've been in the live event space and you were blindsided by COVID and you're debating what your next move is, it's great news that 80% of what we've been doing in person translates to virtual, and the 20% that doesn't, the tech and the touch, it's just that 20%, and that's easily mastered, which is what we're going to talk about today. And then there's one other factor that's really critical.
Yeah, and this is the one that we're going to dive a little bit deeper into today, which is how to get people to actually show up. Right? So you have tech, number 1, touch, number 2, and then we're going to cover show up today, number 3, because typically when people think of a virtual event, and I'm curious what you guys think, if you post in the chat, when we say live event or virtual event, what's the first word that comes to mind? And we've asked this question a few times over the past couple weeks, and I know what the predominant answer has been so far. So I'm curious to see if what you guys share is the same thing. But, for the most part, when people think about a virtual event, they really do think webinar. And when it comes to webinars, when the sign-up rates for webinars, or really the show-up rates for webinars, tend to be in the 10 to 15% on average. Right now, in a COVID world, people are at home a little more, so turnout rates are a little higher industry-wide, like 25, 30% on the high end. If you get 35% show up for a webinar, you're really doing a backflip all the way down the hall, right?
But you can't afford that on an event. Like, if you were planning to do a live event and you get 1,000 people registered and only 300 show up, that's painful. Yeah. So we're going to talk today about how you keep that from happening. And the key is really your approach to a virtual event, how you're defining a virtual event experience, what it is and what it is not.
Yeah. So when it comes down to it, we're not talking about live stream, right? So we're doing a live stream broadcast right now. But when it comes to a virtual event, a 1, 2, 3 day, multi-day virtual event, we're not actually talking about live stream. YouTube Live, Facebook Live, livestream.com, Vimeo, all of those platforms are awesome. We're really talking about something that is a little bit more interactive, right? Because in the end, people come to live events for 3 main reasons.
Yeah, it comes down, whether it's in person or virtual, we really, after 16 years of producing live events in this space, believe that people come for content, connection, and community. So when you're designing your event, don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. They're coming to you for content that they can take home, actionable ideas. They're coming for connection to themselves, to you, to a higher purpose of what can be done, and community of like-minded people that they can't find elsewhere. So they're coming for those 3 things, but what can you do to get them not only to show up, but to stay with you so that they experience content, connection, and community? You actually have to redefine what a virtual event experience is. And something we've been saying a lot lately is, in this virtual economy, engagement is the new currency. And engagement equals experience, and experience equals interactivity. So it can't just be a passive interaction. Like, I love what we're doing right now. It's great to have you here. We're watching your chat. So there's some degree of interactivity, but it's not the same as what we're about to talk about.
It's very much one way, right?
Yes.
I mean, we're talking out. Like, fortunately, this is, for us anyway, it's a lot easier than if it was just one person talking out, because we have each other that we can sit and chat with. And, you know, for those of you who are like, we actually had this comment a couple days ago. Somebody emailed us at our support email address and said, there seems to be a little bit of sexual tension between those two. What's going on there? And, well, anyway, for those of you wondering, we're married. So, you know.
It's also why we're not social distancing.
Yeah, exactly.
We've been quarantined together for 60 days now. So
Exactly. So
if it's not a live stream, there are lots
there's a lot of
let's talk about that.
There's a lot of different platforms out there. I feel like every day I get another email with somebody saying, hey, check this out. You know, there's Bizaboo, there's Socio, there's Glisser, there's, you know, On24, Boomset, Eventio, Wova, Sococo, Brella, VFairs, Pathable.
I think Verbella's missing.
Verbella's missing.
I feel like every day there's a new one that gets added to the list.
I got like 3 emailed to me yesterday with people
Silicon
saying,
Valley is alive and well, coming up with new ideas for techies to come up with ways for us to interact. And it can be a little dizzying if you're trying to move into this virtual event space and you're not a techie. I'm not a techie. Looking at this constant barrage of new ways of interacting with people can be overwhelming. But here's the good news. You actually only need one, and it's the simplest, easiest, and most affordable. And it is
Zoom.
Drumroll.
Zoom. Love.
Yeah, and some of you said Zoom. We were watching the chat. A lot of you said you thought a virtual event was a webinar or a live stream, and a lot of you said, you know, I saw a few of you say Zoom.
Yeah.
But yeah, Zoom is, I think it's like simple is the new sexy, right? I think Zoom is sexy because it is simple and easy to use. It's easy for the host, it's easy for your team, but most importantly, it's easy for your attendees. And right now they're already overwhelmed. They're homeschooling their kids. They're now about to deal with summer and trying to, you know, entertain children who have to be 6 feet apart and all that good stuff. You know, people have a lot on their plate right now. And so to ask them to learn one more thing, download one more thing, adapt to one more thing versus just making it super, super easy for you, your team, and for them. And that's where Zoom comes in. Yep. We've been testing it out for the last 60 days and just loving it.
For sure. And the nice thing is when it comes down to it, Zoom really covers the first 2 of those items that we wanted to chat about today, which is tech and touch, right? Tech.
And how you can make Zoom work for you, because it's not just as simple as Zoom. We're going to talk about how and why Zoom. Yeah. So how and why Zoom?
Well, so here's the thing. Let's talk about Zoom from an audience perspective and also from a host perspective. The platform is really solid. You know, we're all lucky right now, to be honest with you, that Zoom had an IPO. Was it late last year or early this year? Because they had, hundreds of millions of dollars injected into their company through this process and have been able to scale their platform up because they went from, 10 million active users a day, pre-March 13th, pre-March really. And the last number I heard was 150 to 200 million active users a day. So it's a platform that is being used heavily, and they've done an amazing job of balancing the load and maintaining their platform with very few outages, which is awesome. And here's the thing. We're not talking about Zoom webinar. Right. We're talking specifically today about Zoom meeting, because Zoom webinar just translates back to it's basically a live stream. I'm going outbound, right? It's just one camera going out.
What we're really trying to work on here is 360 degrees of interactivity. The attendees are able to interact with each other. The attendees are able to interact with you, and you're able to interact with them. Yeah. Really, really important, especially if you're doing a full day event or a 3-day event and you're expecting them to stick with you the whole time. You can't just be broadcasting out. You need to have that interaction.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, so here's the cool thing. From an audience perspective, one of the things that we absolutely love to create connection and community is a feature called breakouts. And it's a feature that from a account perspective, it doesn't matter whether you have the free version of Zoom or you have the pro or business version of Zoom. It's included in all levels.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
If you want to try this out, you can absolutely use the free level of Zoom meeting to make this work.
Yeah.
And for those of you that are kind of debating what is a breakout, you might be thinking of a breakout in the traditional sense, like concurrent breakouts, different sessions with different speakers. That's actually not the type of breakout we're talking about here. No. The Zoom breakout function works a little bit differently.
It does. And we use it specifically to take groups of, 200, 300, all the way up to 4,000 and put them into small groups of 4 to 6 people. And how we use that really, you've all probably been to a live event where the speaker on stage is talking, they're teaching you something. So you've got a little bit of auditory learning going on. Then they have you write down an exercise, right? What's that? That's kinesthetic.
Yeah.
And then they say, okay, turn to the person next to you and share your top takeaways.
Yeah, like if you're in seats, it's a pair share. If you're at a round table, which we do a lot at our events, it's like, why don't you take the next 10 minutes and I want you to go around the table. Person with the shortest hair goes first and share an aha moment or share an idea you're going to implement. And it becomes highly interactive. And this is how the attendees get to know each other, which is that connection and community that they came for. It's a really important feature. So if you're going virtual, you might be thinking, what do I do about that? How do I make that happen? Breakouts are how you make that happen. And it's literally the touch of a button.
Exactly. And, the cool thing about Zoom meeting, of course, like I said, is it includes that breakout functionality at every single level.
So essentially we're taking, let's say an event we did for 3,000 people. We had 2,800 check in.
Yep.
The very first session, the host did some teaching, and then he said, now I want you to do a quick exercise around this. We sent them into breakouts of 6 to 8 people each, and they networked in that breakout as if they were around a table. Yep. When they came back, they were already raving fans. Think about if you're stranded at home and you're dying to get new information, content, and get some more connections, right? Just connect with people who are just like you, struggling with what you're struggling with. And you're surrounded by people in your house that you might love, but maybe they're not your like-minded community. If you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to build your business, and all of a sudden you're immersed with people just like you, working on the same things you're working on, it's an amazing gift right now.
Yeah, exactly. And the nice thing, especially if you've ever been on stage and you've done something along those lines, you've given them an exercise, and getting their attention again sometimes takes a minute, right? The nice thing about Zoom breakouts is literally you press a button that says end the breakouts, and depending on the setting you've set, it gives them a 60-second countdown warning to wrap up their conversation, and then floop, they're
they
back.
All come back.
Yeah, exactly.
No wrangling, no chiming, no cue songs, just boom, and they're back in your general session with you. It's a lot of time savings there. We love that piece of it.
It definitely makes for a cool experience. The other thing that we love about Zoom meeting is that gallery view, right? And the gallery view is something you've probably all seen, which is the ability for you to see 49 different faces at any given point. Typically, Zoom out of the box has a setting that is you can only see 25.
But you can go up to 49.
But you can go up to 49. And, the nice thing about that gallery view is now all of a sudden your attendees can see each other, right? So in the end, what this comes down to, for the reason we like Zoom, is because they can see and hear each other. See each other through the power of the gallery view, hear each other through the power of the breakout features. So did I get that right?
Yeah, and you can see them. So that means you can essentially call them to the virtual mic if you want to. You can literally look at that sea of faces and say, okay, let's hear from Bob Smith. Let's put Bob Smith on, pin that video, and he's on and able to speak to you and to everyone else. So it allows a high degree of interactivity between them and with you and them that really simulates the in-person environment virtually.
Exactly. All right, so a couple questions. Diane said, how did we do that with that big of a group? And I'm going to show you right now. And then also Angie asked, can we predict the desire for virtual events in 2021? No.
No, I don't think we can predict anything.
Exactly. And here's the thing, Angie. I think anybody who tells you different, positive or negative, is not necessarily lying to you.
They're assuming a lot.
They're misleading you because they don't know, right? We really don't know. I'll tell you what I think, if that's okay.
Yeah, and go ahead.
I think that when live events come back, when people are allowed to gather again in person, then I think that live events will be coming back, and people will love to go to the live events that they used to love to go to. But what I also think is true is one of the things that we've seen is a much higher turnout for virtual events because there's less friction to show up, right? You don't have to get on a plane. You don't have to sleep at a hotel room for 3-4 nights. You don't have all the meals out. You don't have the Uber expenses or car rental. Did you hear about Hertz, by the way?
No.
They declared for bankruptcy today.
Interesting.
Chapter 11.
I did not know that.
Yep, that's another one. Anyway, Chapter 11, so bankruptcy protection. They're not gone, but that's a big one.
Yeah, and Blue's kind of hinting at something that I think we're going to see a lot in this industry is hotels that were on the fringes not making it, restaurants that were on the fringes not making it, car rentals, airlines on the fringes not making it. Certainly a lot of people are hurting in the hospitality space. But to his point about I mean, right now in our space, we're working with hotels to figure out when are you officially reopening? And when you say reopen, is that everybody or a skeleton crew? And when are you open for events? And can they be 10 or more? And is it 3 feet between chairs or 6 feet between chairs? And are you going to serve food or are you going to put it into, pre-sealed containers? And if it is it like a ham sandwich or is it a gourmet treat? I mean, all of this is literally up for debate and changes daily, if not hourly. So we don't know what 2021 looks like. We don't even know what the end of 2020 looks like. And I think lots of question marks.
And I think in the end, once things do come back to a little bit more normal or what we were used to, that virtual events done well will continue to be a platform that companies and businesses and people continue to use because it expands their reach globally, right? I mean, we're seeing attendance from all over the world for people who typically wouldn't get on a plane. The last event that we did had between Australia and New Zealand, we had over 70 people with us for them all night long. And
the reach was incredible. Malaysia, United Arab Emirates, Peru, Paraguay. I mean, we looked at the list of countries that we know from running these events in years past, we were not seeing. Like same host, same event, similar audience, and we never saw that global reach that we're seeing now with our events. So, and I also think an interesting thing, if you were to just take a page from the playbook of the hosts who are our clients who went from in-person last year to virtual this year, most of them, once they experienced virtual, have said, we want to do that next year. It's an and, not an or. And I think when the pendulum swings this far out of alignment, when it comes back, it's not really going to ever get back to where we were. And so I think what you're likely to see is some kind of new normal where people are doing both. Like, again, an and, not an or. And the great thing about what we mentioned earlier, if you didn't catch it, is 80% of in-person events and virtual events are the same. 20% is different, is that tech and touch piece. So what's awesome about that is if you're not sure, move forward with your in-person event. And if you quickly have to pivot to virtual, we know, and we're going to show you here, that you can fill them in less than 30 days, quite frankly, even less than 2 weeks. And so it's a quick and easy pivot. And if you're learning the virtual event space and you decide you really want to go back to in-person when it comes back, because that's truly your love and your passion, quick and easy pivot. I think that's the best news to come out of this.
I think so too, for sure. Couple people asking about security with Zoom early on, and about when I say early on, I mean like March, April. There were some issues with Zoom bombing. Zoom has done a lot of work in the last 45 days and completely redesigned their platform to make it a lot more secure. And there were a couple institutions that said no to Zoom that are starting to open the door again because of the changes that they've made. So some of the things that you heard about in the media like a month to 2 months ago aren't a thing.
Already antiquated.
And I can also tell you, having run 3 virtual events with between the 3 of them, almost 7,000 attendees, we have not ever had a Zoom bomber. So there you go.
So we had some people asking how you scale this. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Right. So let's take a look at this from the host perspective, right? Because we talked about it a little bit from the audience perspective, breakouts, gallery view, really valuable. I'm going to show you a little bit about what we have done in our studio to create an environment for the host, because just talking direct to camera for 3 days can be a bit of a challenge. But here, let me show you what we've done. And you don't need all of this, right? This is really more for you to take inspiration. So this is Pete Vargas on our stage for A360i, which was his event. And you can see in front of him, I don't know why in this picture he can see himself, but regardless, he can see another 7 monitors there, each of which have 49, almost 50 people on them. So he can literally see a big portion of his audience. This is me as MC for that event. Again, same thing. You can look out and see the faces of so many people. We also have a big screen behind us so that we can put multiple gallery views up behind us. So 200 people behind us, almost 400 people in front of us. Pretty awesome experience for the host. And it really makes it lifelike. Right? Because they can literally walk up and see the names and faces of 400 people standing in front of them, or sitting in front of them, as it were, and interact with them in a one-on-one capacity. Like reach out and say, hey, Barry, I see that you're with us this morning. Love that sign behind you. Glad to have you with us.
Well, what's really interesting about that is if you've been an event host in a big room, let's say you have 500 people, even quite frankly, 300 people, you're generally going to see the people in the front few rows. After that, it's just a sea of faces. What's kind of nice if you think about connection and community is that with the power of Zoom, and again, you don't have to have this set up. We're going to talk about that too, but you technically have the ability to see everybody, which allows you to really talk to the rafters. It doesn't have to just be the people right in front of you. So a lot of our hosts are saying it's more interactive for them. They're able to see more people. They're able to get to know more people. They're able to have that sense of connection to more people, which is a game changer if you're doing live events.
For sure. You can do panels. So Barry and 4 others, Barry in person plus 4 others, were on a panel with Pete at his live event, and we were able to bring them in to that. And then this is one more shot of me looking out at the stage here at...
But this really gives you a sense of the audience when you look at this. I love this shot because you're kind of seeing the opportunity of what are all those faces in the audience, like you're used to seeing. But the great benefit is you can walk up and talk to as many of them as you'd like to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the glory shot, which is me just kind of looking back, and I like this photo. Christian took this photo.
So what if you're like me? You're not married to it. I happen to be married to a techie,
yes.
So this helps a lot. That Blue loves technology and has been doing a deep dive into this in our company to make all of this possible for us and for you. But what if you're not a techie? What do you do then?
Well, listen. The good news is it doesn't have to be super high tech. Right? This can be as simple as your computer and a television. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Your computer has, almost every computer that's been made in the last 5-6 years has a small camera at the top of it. Pretty much every Mac that's been made in the last 10 years has one, and most PCs do as well. And then if you take a little HDMI cable that you can get for like $4, $5 on Amazon, and plug it into, we almost all of us have a TV of some size, 40, 50, maybe even 60 inch. If you're, if you're, into football or something like that, maybe you have an 80-inch TV somewhere in your house, or maybe your husband does. I don't have that. I'm not into football. Anyway, so you can plug it into your TV, and on your television put gallery view, and then on your computer you put your content and your regular view.
Now you have your own virtual studio.
Yep.
Seriously, it's that simple.
Exactly. And if you go with, I believe, I think it's the pro level, whatever the version of Zoom that is like $20 a month, you can do up to 300 people in a meeting. So it is a great way to essentially do everything that we're talking about for up to 300 people. In our studio, what we've done is we've actually taken multiple meetings and tied them together with a good deal of hardware so that we have up to 16 meetings happening simultaneously for the scale that we're dealing with our clients. But it doesn't have to be that, right? This really does work in small event environments for 5 people, 50 people, up to 300 people on Zoom. And then once you get beyond that, you do have to start to look at some creative ways to combine meetings together, but it's totally doable. I was talking to somebody the other day and they were like, how do I do it? I was like, well, do you have 2 computers? And they said, well, I have a computer and an iPad. I was like, then give that a try.
Right.
And set one meeting up on an iPad, one meeting up on a computer, angle them so that you're kind of looking at both of them. And now you have 2 cameras that you have to deal with, but you've doubled your capacity just by adding a second device and adding a second Zoom license. It doesn't have to be all the hardware that we have. This really can be low tech and easy for you.
Easy for you, easy for the attendees. Yeah.
So let's talk about results, because
a little bit of inspiration to see what's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, because we've been saying often over the course of the last couple of weeks that virtual events are outperforming their live event counterparts, and in almost every single way. And first off,
the number of people who responded, and I got tickled by this because we didn't think of it until it got posted, but it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
The number of people like, of course they're outperforming live events. There are no live events. So, okay, fair enough. But what we're really talking about, because we have the luxury at Sage of doing the same event over and over and over again, meaning you could take an event that we've run for the last 5 years for a client that was always in person, and now it's been virtualized. It's now a virtual event, and we can compare the results from this year's virtual event to last year's in-person results and the year before that and the year before that. When we do that, virtual outperforms in person. So let's talk about that.
Exactly. So the first example I want to give you is actually the first event that we did. That first client that we went to and said, hey, your event just got canceled. How about it? Let's do this. And he said yes. Now, in 2019, he had 300 attendees. In person. When they went virtual, they jumped from 300 attendees registered to 1,200 attendees registered.
So that's a 4x increase. Love that.
Then we had 1,023 people actually check in. And over the course of 3 full days, starting at 11 o'clock in the morning, going all the way through to 7, 8 o'clock at night, we had between 700 and 900 people in attendance.
Just a great show up rate.
Yeah.
Absolutely outperforming a webinar. Go team, go.
Exactly. Now, from a performance perspective, for those of you asking how we are measuring performance, in 2019, this particular event did $600,000 in revenue between ticket sales, sponsorship, and continuing education offerings. And in 2020, they did $720,000 in revenue. That's a 20% increase in revenue, but more importantly, they actually also had a much higher profit.
And let's talk about this. This is super exciting. A higher net is actually more important. So it's great that the gross is better, but even more importantly, the net is better. At the end of the day, that's what you're living with as an entrepreneur, is your net profit. And so when you take into account the fact that you don't have that liability, you don't have that hotel contract, you don't have as much print and product, you're not serving coffee, you don't have a food and beverage minimum, you don't have room liability and overhead. Not only is there significantly less liability, there's significantly less overhead. So your net is higher. So that's what's most important. And, I think not only are we excited by that on the first event, we saw it in the second event. So let's talk about what that looks like at an even bigger scale.
For sure. So the second event, 2019, had 600 attendees. And this year, when they went virtual, they went to 3,000 plus registered for the event. They had 2,800 people check in for the event. And we're going to talk about that check-in process in just a moment.
What that means and why that's important.
Yeah. And then 2,200 to 2,400 people in attendance over the course of those 3 days. Again, long days, 11 o'clock in the morning, all the way through till, in his case, between 7 and 9 o'clock at night. Now, in 2019, they had generated $2.4 million in revenue. Great event. In 2020, they did 2.5 times that, which is pretty amazing. They're in the last number I heard was $6 to $7 million, but they were still in the process of wrapping up sales calls because they had a week of strategy sessions after the event that they were in the process of doing.
So it's safe to say that 7 million is a conservative number. So, that's an amazing return. When we talk about a purpose-driven payday, that's exactly what we're talking about. The number of people that they were able to impact, 2,800. The number of people that they were able to serve on an extended level, also really big numbers. And that matters. You try and give as much as you can to the people that are there for the 3 days, give them as much service and as much content and as much connection and as much community as you can possibly pack into 3 days. And then for those people who want extended work with you with like additional hand-holding and accountability and community and enhanced opportunity, all those things that typically come in a high ticket offer, not only are you extending your purpose by helping and supporting them, you're getting their work out there, but that is your payday. And for many of us, that's, how we're making a living and keeping our teams afloat. So impact and income, purpose and payday married together, always strong in an in-person event. Like I think we've generated $450 million over the last 16 years for our clients through this exact same model. But to hear that it can perform just as well or better in virtual is great news for all of you out there who live, love, and leverage live events.
Exactly. A couple people asking, how is the attendance tracked? I mean, Zoom tells you how many people are in a meeting.
This is my team's favorite part. No more counting heads with the clicker at the back of the room, which is what we're normally doing to get some average metrics of seat counts. You can tell with pretty laser focused accuracy how many people you have at any one time.
Exactly.
And we do look at that beginning of a session, middle of a session, end of a session.
Yeah, our team tracks that over the course of the 3 days. We're constantly looking at how many people are in attendance. In our case, we had to add up the totals from multiple rooms, but that takes 3 minutes, maybe less than that, and you're done. So we track that over the course of those 3 days. That's how that's happening manually. Leslie says these figures are relative, and there are dozens of other factors to achieve that. Yeah, Leslie, the interesting thing is that's accurate, but they are the same factors that are used to achieve it in a live event environment. Yeah. So while that's accurate in general, that's kind of like saying, yeah, but you have to know how to put on a live event. And yes, of course you do. You need to know the structure. You need to have a good high ticket offer. You need to be a decent speaker. All of those things are true in person. They're also true virtually. And the interesting thing is when we're comparing these numbers, we're literally comparing them against the same speaker from the same event to a similar target market from the year previous. So the reality is we are keeping all of those other factors at bay, and because we're comparing apples to apples.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, it really is as close to an apples to apples comparison as you could possibly get. If you were going to do a case study, this would be a pretty perfect case study in real time. Yep. So, but you still have some challenges that you have to work through, and one of them is that show up rate.
Well, actually, the biggest challenge, the biggest challenge is the show up rate. And listen, I think that we have we've narrowed it down to 4 keys to getting people to show up. Because if you look at those numbers, we had between 70 and 90% of the people who checked in for the event actually show up. And if you remember what we talked about from a webinar perspective, like 10 to 15, maybe 20% is good. 35% is like, holy amazing. So what do you do to get people to show up at 2, 3, 4 times the rate that they're showing up for webinars to show up for virtual events over the course of 3 full days? So let's talk about what those 4 keys are. Number 1.
No recordings or replays. And I've already seen some of you asking about that in here. Like, is there going to be a recording? Is there going to be a replay? I thought this was 60 minutes. I have to run somewhere and do something. When you come to a webinar, you're kind of assuming that there's going to be some type of recording or replay. And so I think it's really, really critical when you're doing a virtual event experience for a day or 2 days or 3 days that there is no recordings. Unless, of course, you're offering it to a select audience, like many of our clients did, like a VIP experience. They might come with that. And if they do, you don't deliver them until 30 to 60 days after. And the reason is you want people to show up in person. To miss a little is to miss a lot. If you're putting on a 1-day event or a 3-day event, and people are in and out and they're treating it like a series of webinars stacked together or not with you, it's really hard to take them on that journey that's going to give them real transformation, content, connection, and community that allows them to stack that information and have those aha moments that lead to real transformation from your event, really actionable ideas. You need them to stay. They need to stay if they're going to get that real result from you. And if you think about it, if I had an in-person event and someone came down to our team at the back of the room and said, I was just up in my room, so I missed that last session. I'd like a replay, please. Can I get that? I mean, we don't offer that at the in-person event. We expect you to be there in the session room. So you want to train your audience. And again, this is drawing a line in the sand that the virtual event experience requires you to actually be there in person. And that's better for them to learn. It's better for them to interact. It's better for those breakouts. You want them to participate and be all in. So you have to set that up from the beginning.
Yep. So a couple of comments about, let's see, why do you think live events are virtual events are outperforming live events? Is it just due to the pandemic? I think that plays a role. Absolutely. But here's the other thing that I think is accurate. We see there's one element where virtual events are not actually outperforming where virtual events are not outperforming live events. And that's in actual conversion percentages, right? So we track, we're a metrics-based company. We track everything. And we know of the people who come to a live event, how many people then take us up on an opportunity for continuing education. That's the conversion metrics. That's the one thing that isn't actually outperforming. It tends to be about 60% of the, the conversion rate that you typically have, right?
60%
so if you,
of the normal metrics.
Exactly. If you did used to convert at 20%, now you're converting at about 10 to 12, maybe 13%, somewhere in that range from what we've seen, not just from our events, but from other clients as well. Where you're making it up is the majority of our clients are seeing 3 to 4 times attendance rates. So because your attendance rates are so much higher, it makes up for the balance. Now, the elephant in the room question is when live events go away, like people have no distractions. When live events come back or when people get back to their normal life, there's no way they attend these things. And here's the thing. The one thing that nobody who's saying that is actually considering is the fact that the people attending are not the only people stuck at home. They're stuck at home with their family, their spouse, their kids, their dogs, their mother-in-law.
There's a lot of distraction.
There's a lot. There's probably more distraction right now in your house than there is during almost any other day in the history of time.
An effort, to get that time with the host. And you have to ask for that in advance, by the way. You have to, again, let them know it's a 3-day experience. To miss a little is to miss a lot. There are no recordings, so that they do work with their families to say, I need this time so that I can attend this event. Yep. But they're saving. Easy barter with the family is, but the great news is I didn't have to get on a plane. I didn't have to stay away. I'm here to tuck the kids in bed at the end of the night.
Exactly.
Like all those things are made so much easier.
And not only that, even if the price point is the exact same as your live event, which most of our clients are doing, I said it earlier, you save like $2,000 because you don't have a flight, you don't have hotel rooms, and all of those other things that go along with traveling to a live event.
Which, the interesting thing we've seen with every host who switched to virtual is the number of people who've come out of the woodwork saying, I've been following you for years and I really wanted to experience your live event, but I have young kids at home, or I couldn't afford to travel, or whatever I couldn't, whatever it might be. And so I'm joining you for the first time. So the reach to people who we normally can't reach has been amazing. I think that's an awesome upside to all of this. And again, will it stay that way? It's hard to predict that. I mean, I don't think any of us know, and anyone who tells you they do know is assuming a lot. But I think what's really awesome to know, if 80% of it stays the same, then the stuff that you need to apply to both works in both. This just gives you the easy pivot to not have to be in uncertainty. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest messages right now for our hosts, our event hosts who are trying to fill in-person events. What's killing them is the uncertainty. It's like, do I start marketing now, knowing that people are afraid to get on planes, that they might not say yes until they know more? That if you're in the world of marketing to fill your event, putting butts in seats, that uncertainty can literally be an event killer. So the fact that you can confidently commit to virtual right now and know that you can fill it, know that you can go host it, know that you can literally start your marketing right this second is a huge relief if you're in live event world.
For sure.
But to get them to show up and stay.
Well, actually, Paul Martin, dogs definitely do demand attention. I'm with you on that one.
Dogs, llamas, parrots, we've seen it all. I think somebody had a baby pig. It's like, you see a lot of, when people are at home, another thing that's kind of cool is it really increases the intimacy level. You see a child come in and kiss their parent. You see a cat walk across a desk. I mean, you're seeing people in their real homes, which interestingly, I think increases connection and community because you're really seeing each other where you live, where you are, kind of letting people into your home, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the other piece that I think is so important for getting people to show up. It's tip number 2. The first was no recordings. The second is
the swag box. So one of the things that we've been doing with each of the virtual events that we've hosted so far or that we've produced is we have had the host send a box of swag to all of the attendees before the event takes place.
Prezzies.
Yeah. Similar to, when you check into a live event, you get your swag bag with, journals, maybe a resource guide, a sponsor directory, branded pen, maybe some little tchotchkes in your event bag. Think about it. If you
love that in person, don't you want to kind of emulate that? If you were looking forward to your attendees checking in and getting an awesome bag of swag or their reg bag or their badge, whatever it might be, don't you kind of want to give that same experience to them virtually?
Yeah.
So swag does that, but more importantly, what it does is
it is the ultimate email reminder.
Right?
Like, what is better? So email has an open rate of what, like 20-30% right now if you're lucky. And when people, you can send a bunch of email reminders saying, hey, remember you signed up for this virtual event. It's happening this weekend. Really excited about it. Blah, 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 blah. But there's no better email reminder than on your front door.
FedEx guy. If a FedEx guy delivers you, or a gal delivers you a box, are you going to open it?
Most likely, especially a nice big swag box. And you open it up and you get a journal, and, maybe you get a workbook, maybe you get a water bottle of some kind, a pen. And all of a sudden, this live event that was only just virtual, only just ones and zeros or bits and bytes, becomes a tactile experience. It becomes something that you can touch and feel.
And your excitement level goes up significantly because it's no longer a webinar where you're looking for a replay. It has gone from that to a virtual event experience.
Yep.
And now you're like ready to show up. If it was this good, what's the rest going to be like? So there's some great, I think, not only wow factor, but reciprocity from people who are like, that's awesome. I want to show up and see what the rest looks like.
For sure. The third thing that we've been doing that has worked tremendously well is the in-person check-in. So what what we are doing is when we send out the email reminders, and it actually has this information in the swag box as well, but when that information goes out and it says, don't forget to click on this link to join us to check in, because it's required, you click on the link and you go through the check-in process. The last part of the check-in process is a tech check button. And you click the tech check button, and what we've been doing is having a Zoom meeting pop open where a member of our team is sitting there and greets the person, welcomes them to the event, and virtually, of course.
It's as close to in-person as you can get. So you're expecting to click the links and just go through and do the thing, and then you're done. But in the last step, a Zoom room opens up and a member of the team is there, in a t-shirt, #alone_together or whatever it is, right? And says, "Hi, James, great to see you. Thanks for checking in. Just want to run through a couple quick checklists with you to make sure you're set and ready for tomorrow. So first of all, the host is going to be able to see you. Let's make sure you have your camera on."
Exactly.
Great. Okay, let's also check that audio. Looks like you're having an issue. Let's get that fixed. And by the way, have you used Zoom before? Do you know how to mute yourself and unmute yourself? Do you know how to raise your hand? You're going to need to do all of that during our live event together. So let's walk through that and make sure you're all set. Can I answer any questions for you? Okay, this has been awesome. Here's the thing. Don't forget, doors open tomorrow morning at 10:30 and the session starts at 11. To be early is to be on time. Don't forget to have your cameras on. We'll see you there. So that whole warm-up experience that you would normally get at an in-person registration, at an in-person event, to the best of your ability, you want to have those same warm-up touches with your audience. Because again, when did you ever get that for a webinar, a telesummit, or a teleseminar, a live stream, or a live cast? You didn't. And that's part of the plan, not to mention, and that's initially why we did it, but what's the other part that's so awesome?
Well, that's why we did it, right? Because to your point, we wanted to be able to start on time, 11 o'clock in the morning. Is that the one that you said?
I haven't said that yet, but that is the key, right? It's like with those tech checks, you're not spending the first half hour of your live event answering how to mute and unmute and how to turn your camera on and people not understanding how Zoom works. You've gone through all of that. And luckily, Zoom is super simple. Simple is sexy. So you've gotten everybody on board and where they need to be. So you have a smooth, on-time start. We haven't had one event that has not started on time because everybody's prepped and ready to go and excited to be there.
And here's the thing, guys. These three things that we just talked about so far, the no recordings, the swag box, and the in-person check-in, you've now completely differentiated yourself from a webinar or what people see as a virtual event, like a live stream, before the event even takes place. Like day one hasn't even started and they realize this is something different. This is cool. I am excited about this.
And you've enhanced connection and community from the beginning. Yeah. Keep in mind, if we have a tech check happening and 2 people or 3 people, or we've had as many as 20 people arrive at a time, we introduce them to each other. We do their tech check together. Now they've already formed a bond with some people who are attending the event, which is awesome. That's the same thing that would happen at registration in person if you were standing in line to pick up your badge. Those enhancements make a big difference in that feel of like-minded community to start your event. You're warming them up before the first session's ever started.
For sure.
So what's our next one? Because this is a big one.
Yeah, this is our big one. So those first 3 things happen before the event actually takes place. This last one, the 4th piece, is what some people call gamification, but we have started to call funification. Exactly.
To funify the event.
To funify
if you're going to
event.
Virtualize your event, funify it.
Might as well be fun.
So it's a made-up word, admittedly, but we like it because gamification can have a negative context.
Listen, gamification's got to be a made-up word too. Like that word didn't exist 4 years ago.
I think it didn't, but now it is. I don't know. I can't debate that. But what I can say is that sometimes when I hear the word gamification, to me, it feels like kind of a techie thing or a marketer thing or something someone does to you, like gaming the system. I don't know. I don't love the connotations of it. But funifying, I think, is so much better. And here's the hook for funification, is that you want to reward people for taking the action you want them to take. You want to make this event as fun and as interactive as you possibly can. And if you're making it easy for them to find each other and to do the right thing and then rewarding them for doing those things, what's likely to happen? They're likely to stay with you. They get addicted to that. I want more rewards. I want to be higher on the leaderboard. I want more interaction. And so if you can create that, they will stick with you for day 2 and day 3, which is really critical for stacking that content in your live event.
For sure. So a couple people asking what happens if multiple people... Actually, sorry. Let's close the loop on funification, and then we have a few questions.
What else would you say about funification?
Well, I think...
Is it good?
Listen, I think in the end, and you've said this, but I think it bears repeating, which is that you're rewarding people for taking an action that you want them to take anyway. Right? You want them to show up every day, so reward them when they show up. You want them to click on the link and join the Zoom meeting, so reward them when they do that.
You want them to do hashtag whatever on social media and do a post. And you want them to film a video. You want them to fill out the exercise. You want them to show up and do the breakout room. And so, we've found a way, because again, we have the luxury of an amazing techie in our house who can coordinate all of this, to create a dashboard and to automate all the funification. But if you want to keep it really simple, because simple is sexy, right? If you want to keep it simple, it could be as simple as when they take the action, you have someone on your team. Listen, if someone on your team might be your teenager who's home for the summer, right? But someone who's actually tracking those activities and putting their name in a bowl, right? Like every time they do it, they get a name in a bowl or a raffle ticket in the bowl, so that when you are pulling rewards must be present to win, then they're getting rewarded for taking that action. So it can be super simple. It literally can be on paper, or it could be simple automation, which I know is going to lead to the question, if we were to automate it, how do we do that?
So we built a very simple dashboard or very simple website using WordPress. Like really, we are event planners first, web designers like 17th. It's not even close to, it's not second.
An acquired skill in the last 60 days.
Yeah, but the reality is there's plugins that you can use inside of WordPress that help to gamify the system, so that you can so it can track users' behaviors, like a click or a visit to a website, and then assign points to those users. So that's what we're doing. But like Barry said, this can really be as simple as getting a free Facebook group, saying to people, all right, post a photo of where you are right now with your swag that you got in the mail, and post it in the Facebook group. And then, like you said, you get the teenager to write the names of everybody who did that down and reward them with a prize.
Or a spouse, or a
this
neighbor,
can be
VA, or
low
whatever
tech.
It may be. It can be. It really can be.
Yeah.
The key is to think about what are the things that you most want to reward, and then how can you reward those actions taken, and keep that level of engagement going over the course of the 3 days. It builds connection and community, but it also builds stick, so that they're really having that transformation. And that's what a purpose-driven payday is, right? Like the purpose-driven piece is we want to have impact, and to have that impact, we need them to stick with us.
Yeah. So I know earlier we shared a couple of stories with you with big numbers, 600,000 to 720,000 with a 20% increase,
7 million.
2.4 to, $6 to $7 million.
Yeah.
If those numbers are daunting or maybe out of reach. I mean, I know if we were to host a live event, they would be, out of reach. That's not something that I have in I know that we do it for our clients, every day, but maybe this story is a little more relatable for you. So we have a client, Kelly Schaefer, who is in a course that we have called Rush, the live event blueprint. And Rush is a course that teaches people how to host profitable live events. And Kelly was going to do a live event at the end of April, and it got rescheduled like everybody else's event in April. And we had a call with her and the rest of the group mid-April, and said, Kelly, why don't you do a virtual event? And just kind of gave her the basics of what that would look like. So she decided... This is
important. Think about this really quick. I mean, Kelly is an amazing coach to concierges. Mm-hmm. Concierges have been really hard hit by COVID, and they're really in need of leadership and of content, and of connection, and of community. And so for her event to just evaporate was not only sad for Kelly, was she in mourning, it was sad for those attendees. They were in mourning. They'd been looking forward to this opportunity to learn from her so that they could have a game-changing year, because they're hurting right now. So by quickly making that pivot, and I think she did it, in less than 2 weeks?
Less than 2 weeks, yep.
In less than 2 weeks, she went from having it be in person to having it be virtual. And these are the results.
So she had 28 people register and show up for her virtual event. At the end of it, it was a one-day event, and at the end of it, she made a $2,000 high-ticket offer, an invitation to work with her over the course of the following year in a group coaching scenario. And 6 of her attendees took her up on the offer. And that translates, of course, to $12,000 plus in revenue from a one-day event.
That's pretty awesome, right?
Yeah.
I think of that as 12K in a day. And how many of you would love to make 12K in a day? You know, that's not bad for a day's work. And the best thing is that's 28 people served by her event, 6 people that are going to be served over the course of the year. And she has a structure and a strategy now that she can wash, rinse, repeat. She could literally be running this every month. And she put it together in less than 2 weeks. One of the themes here, I don't know if you've caught it, our first event we organized in less than 3 weeks. Our second event we organized in less than 4 weeks. Our event 2 weeks ago for Jeff Walker, we organized in less than 2 weeks. Kelly organized her event in less than 2 weeks. One of the great things about virtual, not only is it outperforming, but it's also so much easier to fill. Lower liability, higher gross revenue, higher net profit, and easier and quicker to fill. Yep. All good news.
And, you know, I think with that, the important thing, hopefully that we've gotten across this morning on this beautiful Saturday that we get to spend together. Hopefully, you have some fun planned for the rest of the weekend. But you know what I really hope that you're thinking about now is you're imagining what you could do with a virtual event.
Yeah, what could you do with 12K in a day? What could you do with 28 attendees? What could you do if in less than 30 days or in less than 2 weeks, you could put some of your members, the people that follow you, members of your tribe, together in a room, a virtual room, and give them real transformation, have real impact for them, and ideally create a payday for you. You know, those go hand in hand. Sales is service. You serve people first and sell them second. You give them impact before it changes income, both for them and for you. These are all wedded together in a virtual event, just like they are an in-person event. The great news is it doesn't have to be sidelined by COVID. So if that were true for you right now, I'd love for you to post in here, like, what's your big vision? What would your event look like? Would it be 1 day or 3 days? Would you make a high ticket offer or a low ticket offer? What would 12,000 in 1 day mean to you right now? And if you could wash, rinse, repeat that over the course of the summer, what would that mean to the year 2020 that looked like it was going to be the worst year ever and could possibly be your game-changing or even your breakout year?
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, the cool thing, because this can happen so fast, that live event is something that Kelly could continue to replicate and do, you know, 5 times over the course of the year or 6 times over the course of the year, because it's a one-day event that didn't take very long to fill.
And each time it gets better and better, and she builds that muscle on how to deliver content and connection and community and how to make that high-ticket offer so that when in-person events come back, she is prepped and ready to roll in that environment too. It's pretty awesome.
Exactly. So with that, Barry and I would like to actually invite you to a virtual event that we are hosting that is taking place this coming weekend, next weekend, May 29th through the 31st. I'll get there. May 29th through the 31st. And we're calling it, we had a crack team of marketers work on this one.
The virtual event on virtual events.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says it all, right? It's not hard to figure out. Simple as sexy. The virtual event on virtual events. And listen, part of why we did this, and we put this together in less than 30 days, much like our clients, is that we have just been swamped with requests on how do you do this and how do you do that? Would you be willing to jump on a quick call? And could you show us how? And could you explain Zoom? And could you explain breakouts? And how do you take in-person and virtualize it? And all those things that everybody is questioning right now. And we've been leading the field in this because I think we're the first to the punch. We're the first ones to figure it out and to make it work and to get out there and to show people how it works. And so it's a lot easier to do this over 3 days than it is to take 3,000 calls explaining how this works. So if you're interested in figuring it out, the virtual event on virtual events is 3 days devoted to how to put on a virtual event, simple and easy and affordably. Yep. The very first day is how to strategize. And strategize is how do you design the event? What is the big why behind the event? How do you create the high ticket offer? How do you fill the room? Like all those things that are so important. How does the tech work? How do you get the tech stack figured out? I'm going to let Blue talk about that in just a second. But we're a strategy first company. Sage is strategic advice for growing events. And for 16 years, we've led with the strategy first mentality, which is always put the strategy first, figure out the strategy, and then put the details into place. So of course, day one is strategize. It's figuring out the strategy for your event. You get a virtual event blueprint guide in your swag box or digitally, depending on how you want to do it. And you're literally filling out the strategy for your event so that you can implement it. Talk a little bit on day one. We're going to talk tech stack and how that works.
Yeah. So we're going to cover 3 different layers of this. We're going to go a little bit deeper on the super basic package, which is like television and computer. And I'm going to show you what that looks like and sounds like so that you can see and make that choice for yourself.
Simple and easy.
Then we're going to go one step up. We're going to add an external camera to it and possibly 2. And then we'll go one step above that and take a look at what it sounds like with an external microphone. So we'll add different layers of it. You'll also obviously see everything that we're doing from a live event tech stack perspective.
That way you can start with the most basic and then see how to level up from there if you'd like to. We call instant up levels. Nice, not necessary. But if you want to, you'll know how to.
For sure.
So that's day 1.
Day 2 is all about virtualize. And this is where we take all of the pieces and parts that we love about our live events and we decide which of them make the most sense to do in person or virtually, sorry. Okay. So sponsorship, as an example, I saw a few of you asking about that. And can you do an exhibit hall? The short answer is yes. And we actually have a few sponsors for our virtual event on virtual events where you get to see what that interaction looks like. We have, I think, 4 or 5 sponsors who are with us so that you can see what that process looks like. You can decide, do you want to do keynote speakers? Because that's still a possibility. And we actually just yesterday talked with somebody that I'm really excited is going to be doing a short keynote presentation on day 2
just so you can see what that looks like.
Yeah, and he's awesome, actually. He's been a keynote speaker for us for a couple of our clients, but has been a good friend for years. And he was an attendee already, and we gave him a call and said, hey, how about this crazy idea that we have?
Yeah, we also have another special guest coming to teach how to do breakouts on day 2. Yeah. It's a lot of question we're getting. And there's the tech of how to do a breakout. We're going to teach you that. We talked a little bit about it today. But there's also just the touch point, how to make it work, how to make it easy and efficient, how to make sure people don't get lost in the breakout or that the breakouts don't fall flat because you don't know how to set them up properly.
Oh, yeah.
So we're bringing in one of the foremost experts. We've learned so much from him. He's going to be teaching you that. So it's all about how to virtualize, how to create revenue, all the different ways to create revenue, how to do breakouts, and how to take those in-person things you love and virtualize them. That's all day 2.
Yeah. We're also going to be covering marketing on day 2.
Filling the room.
I have to go back to my notes, but I think it's 5 or 7 different ways that you can market and fill your virtual event. And the cool thing is a lot of these processes also work for in-person events as well.
Yeah, remember 80% of what we're going to be teaching here works for in-person or virtual, but we are going to be going deep on the 20% that's different, that tech and that touch. And then of course, day 3 is actualize. So if day 1 is strategize and day 2 is virtualize, day 3 is actualize. And that's taking all these ideas that you've put together, all this strategy, and actually putting your plan together. We want that plan to be done so that it's easy for you to implement. So that's everything from your high ticket offer and how to get it out there, how to overcome objections, how to coordinate your production timeline, what needs to happen in your timeline, how compressed can that timeline be, what kind of team do you need, how do you train them, what are their roles, all those questions that make the event a reality. You know, the actualizing is how to make the event a reality. Your virtual event blueprint book is going to allow you to dial in on all those pieces and parts. So at the end, it's all in one place and super easy for you to implement. Because here's the thing. If you follow what we've been saying, in less than 30 days, which is by the end of June, you could be putting on your own virtual event. You could be realizing your own money from this, your own purpose-driven payday, where you're leading and giving content, connection, community to your tribe. That's the purpose piece, and also creating your very own payday.
Well, and I see a lot of you asking in the chat, how much does it cost? And that was a question that we had ourselves.
Yeah, we debated
how
that.
much should this be? So how this came about actually is Reed Tracy, who runs Hay House Productions or Publishing, gave me a call, and he'd seen what we had done with Dylan, the first event, and he said, dude, you and Barry have absolutely got to host a virtual event on virtual events. He didn't call it that, but he said essentially you have to train on what you've taught. And I said, that's a great idea, Reed. What should we charge for it?
We kind of debate because we charge $20,000 for a strategy day. If you are paying us to come into our offices or do a virtual strategy day, it's $20,000, and we spend 4 to 6 hours together mapping out your strategy. Yep. But that felt like a lot to charge for a 3-day event. So we're like, well, you know, 5 to 10,000 seems reasonable. And a lot of the folks in our mastermind were like, yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly. So, but before we get to the actual price point, we have a couple of bonuses that we're adding on top of the live event. Number one is a product that we have, a 12-part video series called The Coaching Zone. And it sells for $997. It is a product that Barry has produced to put together and show you exactly how a lot of our clients use coaching areas at their live events as a way to engage with the audience and actually bring more value to the audience members through one-on-one conversations. Essentially, it's a strategy session where they give value over the course of 15 to 20 minutes. So this product teaches you exactly how to do that. It works in person. We've also used it virtually. It works in both cases. And then
it's basically how to set it up, how to lay it out, how to get the right people, how to script it, how to train the people, how to incentivize them, how to have closing conversations, and most importantly, the fact that they're engagement zones as much as they are enrollment zones, and how to make that really work for you with higher conversions. So that's the first bonus.
Exactly. The second bonus is a product that we have called Overcoming Objections. And it is a $1997 price point. And again, over the course of the last 16 years, through various conversations at the back of event rooms, Barry and I have discovered that there really are 5 primary objections that most people have. And in the end, it comes down to
5 things. And this is something for you to know, regardless of whether you attend the virtual event on virtual events or not. If you're in the live event business and you're making high ticket offers, know that objections in any niche, any market, any country, any language come down to these 5 things. Are you ready? They're time, money, spouse, fear, shame, and self-doubt. So I don't have time to do this. I don't have the money to do this. I can't get my spouse or maybe my business partner on board to do this. I'm afraid to do this. It's a considerably big leap for me. Or I've got a little bit of shame and self-doubt working because I've invested before and it didn't work out, or I've invested before and I didn't work. The old procrastination feature. And it generally happens in that order. Those are the objections and those are the order they come. And if you think about it, as you go, they get deeper. Like shame and self-doubt is a tough one. Generally people are not walking up and saying, I'm ashamed of myself because I invest and I don't do the work. But a lot of times it's lurking beneath the questions they're asking. So knowing how to overcome those objections, and more importantly, doing it from a service-based perspective. One thing we believe in to our very core at Sage is no manipulation, no arm twisting people into enrollment environments. You have to serve them first before you can sell them. You have to make sure the program's right for them because it's a long game. People come back year after year. And if you don't treat them well the first year, they won't come back and they won't bring others with them. So it's always about service. If you've been nervous about sales or your team isn't sure how to do sales, think of it more as enrollment. And the enrollment theory is how to serve them first and sell them second. And you do that by knowing how to overcome those simple objections. So we'll explain exactly how to take all those reasons not to and make them their reason to. And that's why we normally sell it for $19.97, because if you overcome one objection, you've more than made your money back.
For sure. So total value over $8,000 between the cost of or what people have told us we should charge for the event plus the 2 products. So with that, we have a $997 enrollment fee for the event, which we reduced to $297. That price point is as of last night at midnight. But because you guys are with us today on Memorial Day, on a on a Saturday, we have an even more special offer for you, which is $200 off of that $297 to make it only $97.
I think you have to have a code to do that, right? Because the price went up last night at midnight to $297. So how does that work?
You need the promo code TVE for the virtual event, TVE200. So head on over to pbsage.com. That's peanutbuttersage.com.
He can't help himself.
/TVE.
It really stands for powered by, but Blue insists on calling it peanutbuttersage.com. /TVE, the virtual event. Yes. So if you go to PB Sage, think of it as poweredbysage.com /TVE, it'll take you right to our sales page. Yeah. Or if you're a fan of blues and you'd like to go to peanutbuttersage.com /TVE, that will work too.
They both get you to the same place. Absolutely.
And then you're going to see the price point at $297, but just enter in that code of
TVE200. the virtual event.
For a $200 discount.
Yep.
So
lowercase, by the way. Make sure it's lowercase. TVE 200.
TVE 200. And that will give you $200 off so that you can lock in that $97 registration fee and those 2 bonuses that we talked about.
Yeah. Exactly. So I hope you join us May 29th through the 31st. And we do have, as promised, about 15 minutes left for Q&A. There were a couple of questions on the check-in process that I'll address, but any other questions that you guys have, please don't hesitate to ask away, whether it's about the event itself or virtual events in general, where this question does not have to be specific to our virtual event on virtual events, although we're happy to answer questions about that as well.
Ask us anything session. You can ask us anything you want about live events, virtual events, in-person events. We'll do it now. And I think we did also promise to share what is the one thing that most people are getting wrong. So I want to make sure we make good on that promise.
Well, here's what most people are getting wrong. When they look at virtual events, $97 US. Renee, when they look at, hold on one second.
He can't because he's so distracted.
So I am. Lots of people are asking questions.
Do you want me to tell them or do you want to tell them?
You can tell them. Well, so here's what happens. When people think of virtual events and taking their event online, most people are using a structure that they already know, which is webinars, right? A lot of you, when Barry and I asked the question, what do you think of when we say virtual event? A lot of people said, Facebook Live, live stream, webinar, things like that. And so if that's the structure, in order to do a live event or virtual event, you're essentially taking that and stretching it out over 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days.
And it seems simple, but I cannot tell you how many people, big names in this industry, are getting that wrong by just treating it as a 3-day webinar. I promise you, people will not stay with you for a 3-day webinar. So it's really important to take some of the tips that we've given you here and making them interactive and developing interaction and engagement. Remember, engagement is the new return on engagement. Engagement is the new currency in a virtual economy. How do you create and ramp up engagement? By making it interactive, by having breakouts, by having swag, by having funification, all these things that we've been talking about, by having an in-person check-in. That's how you get them to show up, and it's how you get them to stay. So it seems simple, but again, simple is sexy. It's easy to get simple wrong when you make it too complicated. And for sure, stringing together a series of webinars ends up with people popping in and popping out versus sticking with you for the whole 3 days.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, one thing that you have to do when you do your virtual event, your first or your next virtual event, whether you come to ours or not, if you take a lot of the information that we shared with you over the last 90 minutes, you have the foundation for a solid virtual event. You have the tools to overcome the biggest thing that people have to overcome when it comes to virtual, which is getting people to actually show up. And then what I really want you to do is make sure that you remember that virtual events are, in fact, live events.
Virtual events are live events.
Exactly. All right, let's see. Lots of questions. Okay. So pbsage.com/TVE. Once you get there, there's next to the price point, there's a little button that says apply promo code, and then put in there TVE 200. And that will get you the $97 price point. TVE 200 is all lowercase, no spaces, just TVE 200. A few people asking about times of day for the event. It's May 29th through the 31st. And Barry, time frames?
Yeah, it's approximately 11 a.m. Eastern to 7 p.m. And I say approximately, we're starting at 11 a.m. Eastern each day. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the 29th, 30th, and 31st, we'll start at 11 a.m. We open doors at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. By the way, we found that is the best time zone. Especially if you're in North America, that's the best time zone for this, to get the max number of people to show up on time. And then it goes until roughly 7 o'clock each day. We're going to end earlier on the last day, more like 5:30. And we may go a little bit later on day 2, more like 8:30, because we want to get all your questions answered as you're going into actualized day 3, actualized content. So think of it as 11 to 7 on day 1, 11 to 8-ish on day 2, and 11 to 5:30, 6 o'clock on day 3. You'll get all of those confirmations in writing once you register, but that gives you a general idea. The other thing to know is we do take breaks during all 3 days. So you have a morning break, you have an afternoon break, you have a lunch break, you have a dinner break where needed. So, you obviously, we can't feed you because you're at home. You have to plan to hydrate, caffeinate, and have your food and your snacks on hand, but you will have time to do that. You will have time for interaction. You will experience sponsors, as Blue mentioned. You will experience speakers and panels and all the different things that we do in person, virtualized. And I think this is probably one of the best parts of the virtual event on virtual events is if you want to host one of these, what's the best way? You want to learn, but you also want to attend one. Like being an attendee allows you to see what really works for you, what you like, what you don't like, what you want to apply to your own event. So being a fly on the wall, being able to be an attendee and go through this whole experience is a really important way to recalibrate how you're going to do this when you make it your own. And then of course, we're also going to teach you how to make it super easy for you to take those ideas and put them into action.
You got it. All right, let's see. I'm multitasking today, folks, because the chat that lives on peanutbuttersage.com/TVE, the chat that lives there, our team is actually, our team is off this weekend because it's Memorial Day, so I'm answering the chat on that page as well. So you're actually chatting with me while I'm trying to be on a live stream. Good times.
I don't know if that's his best idea.
Well, Renee needs a pee break. Okay.
Go for it, Renee.
Go for it, Renee. You can come back.
You can take us with you. Just turn off video or whatever.
Well, I mean...
Yeah, here you just have to worry. You don't have to worry about that. Quick break. Right?
Exactly. All right, let's see. A question about the topics for each session. So the short answer is... this is actually a teaching moment for you. We don't share the topics for each session.
You know why? What's the question behind the question? Generally, the question behind, can you give me the topics and what you're doing and when you're doing it? So what you're really asking is, I have to decide which ones I'm going to skip, and I want to take a look at that so I know. And you really do want people to stay for the whole event. I said this before, but we practiced this for the last 16 years, and it really matters, is to miss a little is to miss a lot. Yeah. And so planning to actually carve out this time and be there in this space really makes a big difference. When you're going through day 1, strategize, day 2, virtualize, day 3, actualize, those ideas and concepts stack on one another. So to miss something is to miss a lot. So if you're going to sign up, do everything you can to be at every session. Know that we reserve the right to move things around. Sometimes we may push a session back a little bit because we realize you're stuck on one concept. You need to spend a little more time here. We don't want a million people going, I thought you were teaching this at 2 o'clock. It's like, bear with us. We're giving you what you need when you need it. And what's really great about a virtual event is getting this real-time feedback so that you can make those adjustments as needed to really serve the audience. So trust the process. Know that the basics are covered in strategize, virtualize, and actualize. If you have questions or want to hear a recap of that, you can go to pbsage.com, TVEV, just add a V onto the end of that. It'll give you a short little 12-minute recap video of exactly what we're covering each day. Yep. So there's no confusion. And
it'll look like we're sitting right here while we tell you those things.
Different outfit, I think, from a different day. But yes, exactly.
All right, let's see. A couple people asking about recordings. The short answer is recordings are available, but we're taking our own medicine here, right? So we recommend to our clients no recordings for general admission. Same thing is true here. There is an upgrade to get the recordings. It's an additional $197. It's called All Access, and it includes the recordings. We're doing something really cool with the recordings. They're going to be available 30 to 60 days after the event, but
they're searchable. Let's talk about this.
Oh my God.
It's like one of my favorite innovations. Thank you, Stu McLaren, for coming up with this product called Searchy, which we use in our course, we use in our business, and we're absolutely using with your recordings here. Yeah. Why is Searchy so awesome?
Well, Searchy is amazing because it completely indexes your videos and the event videos. And what does that mean? It means that there's a little search button on the page where you're going to be able to access the recordings. And if you're like, you know what, I really want to cover the part where they talked about sponsorship again, and you don't remember what day or what session that was in.
Maybe we talked about it multiple times.
You can literally type in to the search box sponsorship, and not only does it show you what video that it shows up in, that's the easy part. The really cool part,
it takes you to that spot in the video.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is a game changer. Seriously. Think about searching for your own business too. It's amazing. And of course, since we're trying to find things in our own course, the fastest thing to do is type in the word you're looking for. It takes you to all those places in the course where you said that. Or you have a sea of videos that you've made and Facebook Lives, whatever, and you're looking for when you talked about a certain concept. Searchy does that for you. So the Searchy component is free with the recordings. It's $197 to upgrade to all access. That gets you the recordings of the whole event in 30 to 60 days with the Searchy feature that allows you to search them. And then you also can join us for an Ask Me Anything reception on night 1 and night 2. Yep. So we end each day for all access participants with an open Q&A. And we really do look at it as ask us anything. Anything you want to ask us, we will answer. We'll stay until the last question is answered. We recommend you come, BYOC, bring your own cocktail. We'll have a cocktail or a mocktail together and get your questions answered. So that's all access. Recordings via Searchy and reception night 1, reception night 2 with an ask us anything. And by the way, if you're thinking of doing a reception, it's a great way to experience what receptions can look like. We're going to take a couple different approaches to that each night.
For sure. Let's see. Should we search all the times Blue says peanut butter? Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Another question. Is this for one person or for a team? This really is per person. So, we've made this, I think, really affordable. So at $97 a person, it's a really great value. So it is per person. Let's see. A few other questions. Will you cover the tech side of panels or speakers from different locations? Yes, although truthfully, I'll cover that right now. Zoom is amazing.
Yeah, we're going to show you how Zoom, you'll get to, again, experience what it feels like as an attendee, but we'll also talk about how you make it real at your own event.
You got it. Nikki asking, just to confirm, so with the upgrade, the additional $197, you get the entire recording of all 3 days? Yes, correct. They don't get delivered for about 30 to 60 days after the event because we have to clean them up. It's a multi-camera production because I'm a nerd, so they're going to be awesome. But then also there's the searchable feature, which takes a little bit of time to actually put into place as well. So those are the big ones. I saw another question. Oh, how long is this price point? Sia asks, any marriage advice? Marry somebody you like. How about that? That's
that
the extent. That's the extent
I like
of
him
my.
a lot. It's easy to be quarantined with him. We have a really good time together. So he makes a good cocktail.
Yeah,
cooks a really great meal.
Yeah,
well, he's a really great conversationalist.
Oh, look at me go! I have so many pluses. You've got me distracted now. I don't know what else to say. You're pretty fine yourself, Barry Baumgardner.
Thank you, love.
Is there a workbook?
No, I think the question you were asking before that was, what's the deadline?
Oh, yeah. We're calling this a Memorial Day special. So even though the price went up,
the code ought to be time and money freedom, but that's too long to type in.
That felt
but I do think of it that way. Like, why would we do this? Because we want to make this as accessible as we possibly can for as many people as we possibly can. I mean, I really meant, if you were with us at the beginning of this broadcast, we were talking about, what is Memorial Day all about in the United States? And it's about honoring people who fought for the time and money freedom we have and for the opportunities we have here today. And the best thing about virtual events and in-person events, quite frankly, is there's no better platform to create your own time and money freedom, to create your own economy. So you're not worrying about a PPP loan or when you're getting unfurloughed or what your paycheck's going to look like, because you can create your own. You can have your 12K in a day or more, depending on how you want to approach it. That is the beauty of a purpose-driven payday. So love that about what we do, what our clients do, and how we serve our people and how we show up. Not just us, but our clients.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, wait, hold on one second.
So it ends on Monday at midnight. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Monday at midnight, your TVE code. Is it TVE?
TVE 200.
TVE 200 code. That discount, that $200 off the $297 price that brings it to $97, ends at midnight on Monday. Ends when Memorial Day ends.
Yeah, exactly. And can't do.
He's really distracted, typing. Are there any other questions that you want to answer?
You know what?
In person versus
I hear you. Will you share pricing structure advice for virtual events? Yes.
That's part of day 1 and day 2. We'll talk about pricing and revenue generation. Those go hand in hand. What you spend and what you make go hand in hand. So that is part of strategize and virtualize, day 1 and day 2.
Yep. Karen says Canadians rock. I agree. Renee said Canadians are awesome. Also,
lots of Canadians.
I agree. Anyway,
you can only do it with that sound. Is that like a Canadian?
No,
sound?
it's totally not. It's just it's a me this morning sound apparently. All right. You know what? I've got nothing else. I don't have.
All your questions are answered.
The majority of them are answered or were answered throughout this.
Do you have a one-day event? We do not have a one-day event right now, but we will be talking about one-day events. So part of the virtual event on virtual events is how to scale. We recommend either a 1-day or a 3-day. Not huge fans of a 2-day, and we'll talk about why during the event. So we will be covering how to structure a virtual event as a 1-day and a virtual event as a 3-day.
Yeah, and I see lots of people who are in here who are joining us. Antoinette. Glad to see you again today. Paul, I'm just chatting with in the chat, who is filling out his shipping information, and a few others. So congratulations on your decision to join us for the virtual event on virtual events. We are excited to have you with us. But I think for now, that probably wraps up our Memorial Day presentation.
Our Memorial Day broadcast, it sure does. So wherever you are, I hope you have, whether it's your Memorial Day or not, depending on where you live, I hope you have a great weekend in store. I hope we've got you percolating, as we like to say, about what could be possible for you with a virtual live event or an in-person live event. And I hope, if nothing else, we've convinced you that you have an unprecedented time right now. If there is one silver lining to the awfulness that is COVID, it is that it's created an unprecedented time and an unprecedented opportunity for you. And I do think, don't mishear me on this, not to be opportunistic, but to support your people. The opportunity is to get out there and be a leader for your tribe, give them the content and the connection and the community that they're craving in a way that only you can do. You know this, if you're a speaker, author, influencer, knowledge broker, you know that your unique approach is right for your unique people. And they're out there. They need you. They need you now more than they've ever needed you to lead them out of the dark space that is COVID-19, because there is so much uncertainty, because we don't know when normal's coming back or what new normal looks like or when it's happening. You know, it's all a big question mark. And in a time of massive uncertainty, what people are craving is certainty. And if you can give that to them in your own unique way and lead them out of this dark space, I think you're doing people a huge service. You can create your own economy. You can help them create their own economy, regardless of what country you live in, what language you speak, what niche you're in, what market you serve. These strategies work in all of them. We've tested it and it's proven. And you can do this. Like, the thing I most want you to know about this is, wherever you are, and whether you want to do an event for 5 people, 50, 500, or 5,000, these same strategies work. You can put it together in less than 2 weeks, quite frankly. The opportunity is yours for the taking to serve your people and to have your own purpose-driven payday. So, unprecedented time, unprecedented opportunity for you and your people. So one thing we want you to remember, we say this a lot at Sage, and it's how we close every broadcast because we believe it to our core. One thing to know is you
can do this.
Can do this. Bye for now.
Bye, guys.